Hey my friend, welcome to today's show. Today is the 31st of October 2020, and that means just one thing. It is Halloween. Halloween's that time of year. It's one of my favorite times of year. Interestingly, people say Christmas is their favorite time of the year. Halloween's probably my favorite time of the year. It's that time of year when people get dressed up and, they go trick-or-treating. Obviously, things are slightly different this year, of course. And, people go to watch horror movies and people go and spend time with their friends and family. It's a time for spooks and frights and scares and fear, right? Now, I don't know about you, but I love a good fright. I love seeing something that's going to challenge my mental limits, something that I'm maybe fearing. I'll go and take action to break through it and move past it, and I'll grow as a person. Now, one of the things that me and my wife love to do whenever we have the opportunity is we love to go to Universal Studios in Florida. Now, they convert their entire theme park to an event called Halloween Horror Nights. And in that event, they have all these scare actors that run around, all the rides are lit up, they have loads of kiosks, so you can buy Halloween-themed foods. And it's a magical time. There's so much energy, so much atmosphere. And part of that is that they've got these scare actors running around. Now, don't tell back at my wife that I mentioned this. She might not watch this episode, but don't tell her. She's terrified of clowns, right? So she's very afraid of clowns. And at this particular one that we went to, I think it was 2 years ago, there was clowns running around with chainsaws. Now, I don't know about you, but somebody who's afraid of clowns and there's chainsaws running about, that's generally a very uncomfortable environment, right? And I remember these scare actors walking towards us, and I kind of stepped back from my wife and I pointed down at her like this, as if to say, to these clowns, I was like, scare her, right? And they came after and she bolted. But the other thing that they do as well is they've got these horror houses. And it's they've got these like studios with all this lighting, all these special effects, these scare actors who jump out of the middle of nowhere. They've got things like Stranger Things and Halloween, the movie, and, The Purge and The Walking Dead. They've got all these things set up. So when you walk in, it's like, it's so themed and, you don't know where anyone's going to come from. You don't know where the next scare is going to come from. You're constantly, your heart is pumping and your blood is pumping. Now, I love that. That for me is fun. A few years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, it was a different story. I would have avoided people in that capacity. I would have avoided stuff because it was like, no, I don't want to do that. Because for me in my head, it seemed like this fear-based thing, like, why would I want to do that, right? But what happened over time is that I constantly lent into my fear. And I want to share that with you. Maybe you have something in your life right now that's causing you to be fearful. Maybe you have something that you want to do. Maybe you have a big business goal. Maybe you have a big personal or professional goal, something that you want to achieve. But you have this fear in your head that's stopping you from taking action or stopping you from achieving it. You see, all those years ago, I wanted to become a public speaker. I wanted to become a coach. I remember being at Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within event, and I made a decision there that I wanted to do what he was doing, that I wanted to bring personal empowerment and transformation to the masses. But at the same time, I had this fear that was kind of like, who do you think you are? You're not good enough. I had this voice that was kind of telling me not to do this thing because it's like, you're going to get rejected. Nobody's going to listen to you. Just play it safe. Now, I don't know about you if you've ever had that, but playing it safe is not how we achieve fulfillment in our lives. Playing it safe is the fastest way to a life of mediocrity possible. Playing it safe means giving up your hopes and dreams because you're unwilling to take action and move towards that fear. Even though I had that fear, I didn't allow that fear to hold me back. It didn't mean I was going to speak in front of 10,000 people straight away. But I knew that in order for me to break through from my fears, in order for me to ever get to where I wanted to be, to move towards this dream and vision, that I had to let go of these fears. That I had to make a decision. I had to become so invested in my outcome that all my fears seemed irrelevant. Make your dream greater than what you fear and you'll win every time. Make your faith greater than your fear and you'll win every single time. That's something that is worth embracing. So whether you're fearing jumping on a sales call, maybe you fear rejection, maybe you fear failing, maybe, you've got this thing that you want to go and do, maybe you want this promotion or something like that, and there's this fear kicking in. Well, I want to share with you a few quick strategies on how you can overcome fear. Now, fear is not something that can be removed. Fear is like this survival mechanism, this fight or flight response that's built into us. And this fear keeps us safe. But the problem is fear as an emotional state actually causes more harm for us, right? It's like, have you ever heard the analogy of the deer in the headlights? So it's like this deer goes from one side of the road to the other. That's its goal, is to go from this side to this side. And as it begins its journey into the middle, it notices these headlights coming towards it. And it's that moment of fear that causes it to become paralyzed. And because of that paralysis, that fear and that anxiety that kicks in, the body cannot move. So what happens then is that deer gets run over. Now, a bit of a morbid thought, but this is Halloween we're talking about here, right? But what happens there is the same for us. When we get into fear, we cannot see the opportunities or the obstacles or the enemies that are actually around. You see, fear is only a perception. When people talk about anxiety and fear, what happens is they're creating something in their head that's worse than what's actually happening. It's like when I wanted to become a speaker, and actually the first time I ever spoke at an event, I was anxious, right? I was fearful because I got in my own head. And because I got in my own head, what was happening was I was thinking about these worst outcomes. I was thinking, what if nobody turns up? What if somebody leaves? What if somebody doesn't like this? What if somebody doesn't buy something that I'm offering at the event? All these fears became future-based. They weren't factual. There was nothing that gave my fears any accuracy or any fact to the matter. So what happened was I was creating all these circumstances in my head, which didn't even happen. Now, here's the thing. What you think about, you often bring about. So if you fear this thing happening, if you fear somebody not buying, if you fear somebody rejecting you, you're going to bring about that fact. Because here's what happens. The person who fears public speaking, they don't fear the audience. They fear being rejected, fear being not good enough. There's something that's going on inside that they fear being proven right. They have a belief inside themselves. And what happens is when you get into that fearful state, your body runs with adrenaline and cortisol, and it starts to go into a fight or flight response. Now, if you go on the stage, like I've done this whenever I was in high school, I had to do a presentation, right? I used to be a shy, introverted person, could never speak in front of people. And what happened was I would go up with my notes, hold them in front of my face, and you'd see me reading them, and I would be breathing and talking really quickly, talking like this, and the paper was shaking. And the reason was because I was in my own head, I was fearing things. I would almost always bring about the fact that people wouldn't like my presentation, because what would happen was I got into a state of anxiety and fear. And when you act from that place, your body, your mind and your body are connected. So when you think fear, you bring fear into your body, then you act from fear. And that fear usually brings about the fact. So here's what happened. Over the years, I leaned into fear. See, Mark Twain once said that courage isn't the absence of fear, but being able and willing to act in spite of it. Now, even though I ran that first event, I knew that I could improve, and you always can, right? But I chose to move into, I chose to lean into the fear. Trust me, I could feel my sweaty palms, my heart rate beating really quickly, the blood pumping. It's like I was on fight or flight mode. But at the end of it, the fear subsided. And what happened was, the more I put myself in those scenarios of fear, the less that fear became. So it means that when I moved to an event of 40 people and it moved to a 2-day event instead, that I had more confidence, I had more courage, because I was building my muscle. You see, overcoming fear through having courage is like training your body. If you want to get bigger biceps, if you want to get bigger muscles, you must go into a gym and you must train. It's through the repetition and the consistent action that creates the muscle build, the muscle gain, right? It's the same if whether you're strength training, if you want to get better at running or any other sport, it's the repetition that creates the result. In fact, as Tony Robbins would say, repetition is the mother of skill. Now, here's the thing. It was only by constantly putting myself in more and more challenging environments that I ultimately became the person that I am today, where I can speak in front of 200 people easily. You can put me on stage in front of 1,000 people and it'd be the same to me as it was 100 or 10, because I've done the work. I've built my emotional muscle. I've built my courage through constant and consistent action. Now, that's not easy, but what I said earlier rings true. Make your faith greater than your fear and you'll win every single time. So if you have something in your life that you're fearing, maybe it's asking that person to marry you. Maybe it's asking that person on a date. Maybe it's investing in your health. Maybe it's investing in your business. Maybe it's making a decision to stop doing something or make a decision to start doing something or to achieve something. Maybe it's something like that. Know what you want specifically and make your faith in yourself greater than the fear of what might happen. Instead of focusing on what you don't want, instead of focusing on this negative thing that you think might happen, focus on what you want. Focus on that feeling, on that outcome that you're moving towards. Focus on the dream, focus on the vision, because when you do, the fear just seems so insignificant as a result. Now here's the key, it has to be a big thing. It can't just be that you want to lose a few pounds or you want to get an extra £1,000 a month. It has to be something big and aspirational, something that like completely obliterates that old fear. And get yourself into action. Not only just focus on what you want, get yourself into action. One of the things that we do at my 2-day Ignite event is we actually do a fire walk on the first day, right? Now, in public speaking and in events, we have a thing called sequencing, where you do something that builds the audience up to doing something, right? And the fire walk on the first day is definitely breaking that pattern. You know, normally there'd be like a glass walk, normally there'd be a few other things there or a board break, something that would bridge the gap, because a fire walk is a very, very high level empowerment exercise. And I don't know if you've walked on fire before, but it's an incredibly empowering and life-altering experience. I've walked on fire hundreds of times and I've never gotten burnt. So here's the thing, at this event, we can pump people up. We can get people excited and motivated to walk on fire, and we can show them how to change their body, breathe a certain way, say yes, make their moves. And when they walk to the edge of the fire, it's ultimately their decision whether they walk or not. You see, you can still act and make decisions from a place of fear. You can choose to step down into comfort or step up into growth. See, these coals are 1,000 degrees. I remember whenever I was at Unleash the Power Within with Tony, and in my head in the arena, I was ready. I was pumped. We were walking out to the fire, making my move, saying yes, and went to walk, and my body literally stopped. Because what happened was my survival brain kicked in, and it was like, hey dude, what you doing? Why do you think this is a good thing? Why do you think we should be doing this? And I got in my own head. So fear kicked in and I actually stopped my body. I got myself pumped up, started breathing powerfully, said yes, focused on where I was going, made a decision that I wasn't going to settle for less, made a decision that would change the course of my life forever. And I walked across the fire, didn't get burnt. It's from then on that I realized that fear is something that you can overcome when you make a decision to, when you take action. You see, you can walk up to that fire, you can be pumped, you can know in your head that you can do it, but if you're not willing to make a decision to step in spite of that fear, if you keep fearing the burn, you're going to get burnt. If you keep fearing the burn, you're not going to step. If you keep fearing that thing, you're not going to take action. You must make a decision, a powerful decision, that you're going to say yes to the opportunity, to say yes to taking action, to saying yes to the outcome. You see, here's the thing. The result may not always end up the way you want it. It may end up that, the person doesn't buy from you, you don't get the promotion, that person says no. It may happen, and that's fine, because there's no failure, there's only feedback. That feedback gives you strength, and it gives you insight that you can change something and go again. Because if you keep fearing something, you're going to keep stepping back into that land of conformity and comfort. And I know if you're listening to this, that's not what you want. You want a life of freedom. You want a life of empowerment. You want to live life on your terms. So that's how you can overcome fear. Fear isn't something, it's not about conquering something. It's about conquering yourself. It's about having courage, building that emotional and mental muscle to act in spite of fear. It's willing to push the boundaries of what you think you can achieve. It's willing to act in spite of it and continually move forward with courage. And when you do that, that's how you overcome fear. So thanks for listening, and I really look forward to sharing more with you in another episode soon. Happy Halloween.